In this video, let's take a walk around on the Dirt user interface and see what the parameters can do. So Dirt simulates the distortion circuits created by analog circuits like vacuum tubes and transistors. So that's the tone that it's going for the type of way that it saturates and distorts the sound. Now taking a look at the architecture of the effect, basically what you've got is you've got two channels of distortion. You've got distortion A over here and distortion B, and then there's different ways of writing and combining these two together. So in the middle over here are two distortion circuits in the pedal, each with three different clipping diode modes that you can choose from. So mode 1 being the most subtle and adds the least amount of coloring to the signal. Then mode 2 is more of a higher distortion mode with a brighter tone. And then mode 3 is the most extreme mode out of all of them, where it adds a crush type of distortion with a darker tone. Then the amount adjusts how much of the distortion or saturation you want to add. On the first half, this is adding saturation, but then on the second half from here and up, what it introduces is wave folding. So what this is instead of using clipping as a form of saturation, the wave folds into the waveform of the signal and back into itself. So just a different form of creating saturation and distortion. Then with the drive, this controls the amount of input gain that's going into the effect. Increasing this increases the intensity of the distortion. Then there's a bias, and this introduces asymmetry into the signal. And what I mean by this is by adding this in, you help produce harmonics to the sound, so it prevents the distorted signal giving that sort of hollow sound. Then with tilt, this is a form of filtering to the distortion. When you turn this to the right, it attenuates the lower frequencies. And likewise, if you turn it to the left, it's going to attenuate the higher frequencies. So it's just going to focus where the distortion's happening. So over here, there's going to be more saturation happening in the lows of the frequency content, where over here, it's going to have the distortion happening in the higher frequencies of the content. And likewise, if you look at distortion mode B over here, this has the exact same settings. Then with the effects trim, this adjusts the output level of the wet distorted sound. So it just helps compensate for any increased levels for when you're adding extra distortion. Because maybe when you're pushing up this drive and amount, you're going to have a louder signal, and then you might just need to just trim this slightly so that if you bypass and compare it to before and after, there's not a huge big jump up in level. This triangle over here is just a safety switch where it just controls the amount of output that's coming out, and you can enable this or disable it to have more loudness that's coming out through the plugin. But I will show you how this works in some later videos. Then finally, you've got the routing. And with this, you can choose how you're routing between the two different modes. As you can see, this is going from A to B. What this means is you have the signal that passes first into channel A, and then from channel A into channel B. So you can flip this around so that distortion mode B comes first in the chain and then it goes into distortion mode A, or you can use the final mode where it's using a parallel configuration where both channel A and B are going out to the output, and then you can blend between the two. So over here, I'm blending between A. We're going into the right, I'm blending more into B. What you will notice though is if you go back to the previous ones, you've got a mix dial over here. So this is just controlling the amount of the dry versus wet. So maybe you only want about 50% of the saturated sound that's going out to the output. Whereas when you jump to the third mode, you see it does change to blend. So you're just blending between A and B. So that covers the parameters that you have available for you on this Dirt plugin. Now let's hear it in action.